Michael Jordan was once asked what he thought about in the final seconds of a game-winning shot. His answer confused people. He said, "Nothing. Not the play, not the pressure, not the crowd, not the millions watching, not the history being made. Nothing." Kobe Bryant said the same thing, Roger Federer, Serena Williams, Muhammad Ali. The greatest performers in human history describe their peak moments identically. No thought, no self, no noise, just the action happening through them, not by them. The Japanese martial arts world has a name for this state. They've had it for over 1,000 years. They call it Mushin. And it's not reserved for athletes. It's available to you in your work, your decisions, your daily life. If you know how to get there. Mushin is written with 2 Japanese characters. Mu, meaning nothing, emptiness, zero. Shin, meaning mind, heart, spirit. Together, the empty mind. But not empty like a blank wall, empty like a clear sky where anything can move through it freely, without resistance, without distortion. In Japanese martial arts, Mushin is the goal of years, sometimes decades of training. The student trains until the technique disappears into the body, until the response happens before the thought, until the mind stops narrating and starts simply being. Here's the irony most people in the West miss. You have already experienced Mushin. Every time you've been in flow, lost in work, lost in creation, lost in movement, that was Mushin. You didn't achieve it, you stopped blocking it. This video is about how to stop blocking it on purpose. Here's what happens when you're performing at your worst. You're thinking about yourself. Not the task, not the moment, yourself. Am I doing this right? What do they think of me? What if I fail? Why did I just do that? I should have prepared more. I'm not ready. Psychologists call this the inner critic, the running commentary that sits between you and what you're trying to do. It's not helping. It never was. Timothy Galway, tennis coach and author, wrote one of the most important sentences in performance psychology. The opponent within one's own head is more formidable than the one on the other side of the net. This is what Mushin solves. Not by silencing the critic through force that never works. You've tried that. But by training so deeply that the critic simply has nothing left to comment on. When the action is automatic, when the body knows before the mind speaks, the inner opponent has no opening. That's Mushin. That's the empty mind, and it performs 10 times better than the cluttered one. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist who spent his life studying peak experience, called it flow. He described it as complete absorption in a task, where self-consciousness disappears, time distorts, effort feels effortless, and performance reaches its highest level. Sound familiar? That's Mushin. Western science describing what Japanese martial artists codified 1,000 years ago. But here's what most people get wrong about flow and Mushin both. They think it's something that happens to them, a gift, a lucky day, when everything clicks. It's not. Flow, Mushin, is the natural result of specific conditions, and those conditions can be built deliberately. Csikszentmihalyi identified the primary trigger. A task that is slightly beyond your current skill, but not so far beyond that it creates panic. The narrow channel between boredom and anxiety. Too easy. Your mind wanders too hard. Your mind freezes. In the channel between, the inner critic goes quiet. The self disappears into the work. That's the entry point, and you can engineer it. Based on both Japanese martial philosophy and modern performance research, Mushin requires 4 conditions. Condition 1, a clear, single focus. Mushin is impossible with multiple tabs open literally or mentally. One task, one intention, nothing competing. This is not productivity advice. It's neurological reality. Divided attention prevents the brain from entering the frequency where Mushin lives. Condition 2, prepared, not planning. The martial artist in Mushin is not thinking about the next move. They trained the next move into their body before they stepped onto the mat. Preparation happens before performance. During performance, you trust the preparation. Planning during execution is the enemy of Mushin. Condition 3, no attachment to outcome. This is the hardest one for Western culture. Mushin requires releasing the result while fully committing to the action. Not caring. Caring completely about the quality of the action and releasing the attachment to what it produces. The samurai who fights to survive dies slower than the samurai who fights because fighting is the way. Condition 4, a practiced ritual entry. Elite performers don't wait for Mushin to arrive. They build a ritual that signals the brain it's time to shift states. Federer's pre-serve routine. Jordan's warm-up. The writer who makes the same coffee in the same cup before sitting down. The ritual isn't superstition. It's a neurological trigger, a practiced doorway into the empty mind. Here's how to build yours. Step 1. Define your single focus. Before you begin any important work, write one sentence. 1. That names exactly what you are doing for the next session. Not work on the project. Not be productive. I am writing the opening paragraph of the 3rd chapter. Specific, singular, bounded, your brain needs a single target to lock onto. Give it 1. Step 2. Create a physical transition. Design a short, repeatable sequence, 3 to 5 minutes maximum, that your brain learns to associate with focus. It can be anything consistent, a specific playlist, a particular tea, a short walk, a breathing sequence. The content doesn't matter. The consistency does. Do it the same way every time before every deep work session. Within 3 weeks, your brain will begin entering the focused state at the start of the ritual, before you've even begun the work. Step 3. Remove the outcome from the room. Before you begin, literally say aloud or write, "My only job right now is to do the work, not to evaluate it, not to measure it, just to do it." This is not affirmation culture. This is pre-framing your brain's success metric. You're not measuring yourself against the result. You're measuring yourself against the quality of your presence in the process. That shift alone removes more than half of the inner commentary that blocks Mushin. Here's the paradox at the center of Mushin. The empty mind is not achieved by emptying. You cannot force it. You cannot meditate your way to Mushin in an afternoon. Mushin is the result of fullness, of practicing something so completely, so repeatedly, so deeply, that the conscious mind is no longer needed to run it. The calligrapher's brush moves without thought because the calligrapher has made 10,000 strokes. The martial artist responds without thinking because the technique has been repeated until it lives in the nervous system, not the mind. The athlete performs under impossible pressure because the pressure is smaller than the practice. This is the real answer to Mushin, and it's the same answer this channel always comes back to. You don't think your way into the empty mind. You work your way there. every deliberate repetition, every disciplined session, every day you showed up when you didn't feel like it. You were not just building skill. You were building the conditions for Mushin. That's what all the practice is for, not the performance, the state that makes the performance possible. Jordan said nothing. Not because he wasn't present, because he was more present than thought allows. He was in the empty mind, the mind that has practiced so thoroughly it no longer needs to speak. That state is available to you. Not in a weekend workshop, not through a breathing app. Through the work, through the repetition, through the willingness to build the conditions day by day until the mind empties itself and the work flows through. That's Mushin. That's the no soft way. What's one area of your life where you felt Mushin, even for a moment? Describe it below. I want to know what it felt like for you.